There is a quiet magic in a single egg. For pennies, it becomes supper for one. No waste, no fuss, no standing over a hot stove for hours on end. For the millions of British pensioners sitting down to eat alone tonight, the humble egg is the cheapest and kindest friend in the fridge. It is packed with the protein aging bones and muscles need. It cooks in minutes, and a box of 6 costs less than a cup of tea in a cafe. Today we are counting down 25 cheap British egg dinners made for one. Meals your Nan would recognize, that cost next to nothing, and that fill the plate and warm the heart. Let us begin our countdown with number 25. Number 25, the coddled egg in a teacup. Long before microwaves and air fryers, this was the gentlest supper a kitchen could offer. You simply butter the inside of an ordinary teacup or ramekin, crack in 1 egg, add a splash of milk, a scrape of salt, and a twist of pepper. Stand the cup in a small pan of barely simmering water, pop a saucer on top as a lid, and leave it for 8 minutes while the kettle does its work. What comes out is soft, silky, and easy on a tender stomach. The sort of thing nurses once fed to the poorly and the elderly. At around 15 pence for the egg and a knob of butter, it costs almost nothing, and dirt is only 1 cup. Eaten with a teaspoon and a slice of buttered bread, it is comfort in its simplest form, kind to the gums and gentle on the purse. Number 24. Egg in broth, the 5-minute soup supper. When the cupboard looks bare, 1 egg and a stock cube become a proper bowl of soup. Bring half a pint of water to a rolling boil, crumble in an oxo or a vegetable cube, then beat 1 egg in a mug and pour it into the swirling broth in a slow, steady ribbon. Stir once and watch it bloom into delicate golden threads, the same trick Chinese cooks have used for centuries, borrowed quietly into British kitchens. A handful of frozen peas or a torn slice of bread bulks it out and turns a sniffle of a meal into something hot and filling. The whole bowl costs perhaps 20 pence and asks for nothing more than a saucepan and a fork. On a cold evening, when appetite is small and the heating bill looms large, this little bowl warms a body from the inside out without emptying the pension. Number 23. Pickled eggs, the larder stand by. There is a reason every old corner shop kept a great glass jar of them by the till. Pickled eggs keep for weeks without a fridge, which makes them a godsend for anyone shopping only once a week. Hard-boil 6 eggs all at once, peel them while warm, and slip them into a clean jar, topped up with malt vinegar, a few peppercorns, and a bay leaf. After a fortnight, they are sharp, firm, and ready. 2 of them with a chunk of bread, a wedge of cheese, and a spoonful of piccalilli. Make a no-cook supper on the nights when standing at the cooker feels like too much. At well under 30 pence for 2 eggs, they cost a fraction of a shop bought ploughman's. And there is something deeply British about reaching into that vinegary jar. A meal that waits patiently in the cupboard until you need it. Number 22. Egg and cress on toast. Cress is the cheapest green a person can grow, sprouting on a damp bit of kitchen roll on the windowsill in less than a week for the price of a single seed packet. Mash 1 hard-boiled egg with a teaspoon of salad cream, a pinch of salt, and a good snip of that homegrown cress. Then pile it onto hot buttered toast. The pepperiness of the cress cuts through the rich egg, and the warm toast underneath turns a sandwich filling into a proper supper. It is light enough for a late evening, costs barely 20 pence, and gives a lonely windowsill a job to do. Watching the cress grow becomes a small daily pleasure of its own, a green promise that supper is coming. For seniors who once kept allotments, that little tray of cress keeps the gardener's habit alive in a single square of soil. Number 21. Egg mayonnaise on toast, the open sandwich. Egg mayo is usually trapped between two slices, but spread thick and warm on a single round of toast, it becomes a knife and fork dinner. Boil one egg for 9 minutes, cool it under the cold tap, then chop it roughly and fold through a heaped teaspoon of mayonnaise or salad cream with plenty of black pepper. Heap it onto toast, slide it under the grill for a single minute until the edges bubble and turn golden, and you have something far grander than the sum of its parts. A sliced tomato or a few slices of cucumber on the side make it feel like a meal rather than a snack. At around 25 pence, it is cheaper than any cafe sandwich and far more satisfying eaten hot. For anyone whose hands struggle with a fiddly sandwich, the open-faced version is easier to manage and just as comforting. Number 20. Curried egg, the spice tin. Supper. A single egg and a teaspoon of curry powder can transport a dull Tuesday somewhere far warmer. Soften half a chopped onion in a little oil, stir in the curry powder until the kitchen smells like a proper takeaway, then add a splash of water and a spoonful of any tinned tomato or chutney to make a quick sauce. Slip in 2 halved hard-boiled eggs and let them warm through for a couple of minutes. Spooned over a small portion of rice, or simply mopped up with bread, it is a fragrant, filling plateful for under 30 pence. The curry powder costs almost nothing per spoon and lasts for years in the cupboard, which makes this the kind of meal that turns store cupboard odds and ends into something that feels like a treat. Anglo-Indian cooks brought this idea home generations ago, and it has comforted solo diners ever since. Number 19. The baked egg, œuf en cocotte. The French gave it a fancy name, but British nans were baking eggs in little dishes long before anyone could pronounce it. Butter a ramekin, or a small oven-proof dish. Line the bottom with a spoonful of leftover cooked vegetables, a few peas, a slice of ham, or a smear of tomato. Then crack an egg on top. Add a tablespoon of milk, a pinch of cheese, and bake at a moderate heat for around 12 minutes until the white is just set and the yolk still trembles. Eaten straight from the dish with a teaspoon and a finger of toast for dipping, it feels indulgent for something that costs barely 25 pence. Best of all, it uses up the little leftovers that might otherwise be thrown away. The half rasher of bacon, the last spoon of peas, the heel of cheese gone slightly hard at the edges. Number 18. Eggy and tomato on fried bread. This was a breakfast trick that quietly became a thrifty supper. Fry a thick slice of bread in a little oil or dripping until golden on both sides. Then, in the same pan, soften a chopped tomato until it collapses into a jammy red puddle. Crack an egg straight onto the tomato, cover the pan, and let the steam set the white while the yolk stays soft. Slide the whole lot onto the fried bread, and you have crunch, juice, and richness on one plate. The tomato adds a sweet sharpness that lifts the egg, and the fried bread soaks up every drop. At under 25 pence, it is the sort of meal that smells of a proper Sunday even on a grey Wednesday. For anyone who remembers the post-war fry-up, that sizzle in the pan is a memory you can eat. Number 17. The Spanish-style potato omelette for one. Do not be put off by the foreign name. A tortilla is simply egg and potato, two of the cheapest things in any British kitchen. Thinly slice one small boiled potato and half an onion. Soften them gently in a little oil. Then pour over 2 beaten eggs seasoned with salt and pepper. Cook it slowly until the bottom sets, then flip it with the help of a plate, and finish the other side. What you get is a thick, golden round that can be eaten hot for supper and cold the next day for lunch, which makes it 2 meals from one small effort. At around 35 pence for the whole thing, it is filling enough to satisfy and sturdy enough to slice into wedges. A scattering of any herb or a dab of brown sauce finishes it off. It is the ultimate use-up-the-spuds dinner. Number 16. Egg fried rice from yesterday's leftovers. Never throw away a spoonful of cooked rice. Kept covered in the fridge overnight, it becomes the base of one of the quickest suppers there is. Get a little oil hot in a pan, push the cold rice in, and let it crisp slightly before pushing it to one side and scrambling an egg in the gap. Toss everything together with a handful of frozen peas and a splash of soy sauce if you have it, or simply a good pinch of salt if you do not. In 5 minutes, you have a bowl of something hot, savory, and surprisingly filling for around 25 pence. It is the meal that rescues the rice you would otherwise bin, the egg that needs eating, and the lonely peas at the bottom of the freezer bag. Thrift and comfort stirred together in a single pan and eaten from the bowl. Number 15. The leftover frittata. Cousin to the omelette, but more forgiving, the frittata is the patron saint of fridge-bottom cookery. Beat 3 eggs, season them well, and stir in whatever needs using up. A chopped boiled potato, a handful of grated cheese, the last of the ham, a few cooked greens. Pour it into a small oiled frying pan. Cook it gently until almost set. Then slide it under the grill to finish the top into a golden, puffed dome. Because it sets firm, it slices beautifully and keeps for 2 or 3 days in the fridge, turning one cooking session into several easy meals. At well under 50 pence for a panful that feeds you twice, it is one of the best value dinners on this list. For a senior cooking alone, the frittata answers the eternal question of what to do with the odds and ends before they spoil. Nothing wasted, everything welcome. Number 14. Buck rarebit. Welsh rarebit crowned with an egg. Welsh rarebit is grand cheese on toast, and buck rarebit is that same comfort with a poached egg perched on top, a dish that has graced British tea tables for well over a century. Make a quick sauce by melting a little cheese with a teaspoon of mustard and a splash of milk, spread it thickly on toast, and grill until bubbling and brown. Meanwhile, poach 1 egg, lift it gently onto the molten cheese, and let the yolk run down into every crevice when you cut in. It is rich, savory, and genuinely satisfying, the kind of supper that feels like a small celebration for around 35 pence. The combination of sharp cheese, tangy mustard, and soft egg is the sort of clever pairing our grandparents understood instinctively. A meal that turns a few pence of bread, cheese, and egg into something fit for a proper sit-down tea. Number 13. Egg in a basket, also known as egg in the hole. This is the dish that makes grown adults smile like children. Take a slice of bread, cut a circle from the middle with the rim of a glass, and lay it in a buttered frying pan. Crack an egg into the hole and let it cook until the bread is golden and the white has set, flipping once so both sides toast. The little round you cut out gets fried alongside for dipping into the yolk, so nothing is wasted. The bread crisps while the egg stays tucked safely inside, which makes it both fun and practical for one. At around 20 pence, it is among the cheapest hot dinners imaginable, and the cheerful look of it can lift a quiet evening. Sometimes the simplest food carries the most comfort, and a face made of egg and toast is hard to feel lonely beside. Number 12. The cheese omelette. The omelette is the egg dinner every solo cook should master, and the cheese version is the friendliest of all. Beat 2 eggs with a fork, season them, and pour the mixture into a hot, buttered pan. As the edges set, lift them and tilt the pan so the runny egg slides underneath. Then scatter a handful of grated cheese across one half and fold it over into a soft, golden parcel. The whole thing takes under 3 minutes, and it dirties a single pan. Eaten with a slice of bread and butter, it is a protein-rich, complete supper for around 30 pence. The beauty of the omelette is its patience with the learner. Even a less than perfect fold tastes wonderful, and every attempt teaches the wrist a little more. For anyone newly cooking for one after years of cooking for a family, the omelette is the confidence-building meal that proves you can still feed yourself well. Number 11. Egg and bacon in one pan. A single rasher of bacon goes a surprisingly long way when paired with an egg. Snip the rasher into small pieces and crisp it in a dry pan, letting the fat render out, then crack an egg straight into that flavored fat so the white catches the smoky taste. Cover the pan for a minute to set the top of the egg without flipping, and tip the lot onto buttered toast. The bacon brings salt and savor, the egg brings richness, and the toast soaks up every last drop. At around 40 pence, with one rasher and one egg, it delivers the full glory of a fry-up in miniature, perfectly portioned for one. There is no waste, no greasy pile of leftovers, just one satisfying plate. For pensioners who once cooked great breakfasts for a houseful, this is that beloved flavor shrunk sensibly down to size. Number 10. The poached egg on toast. There is a gentle dignity to a properly poached egg, and it remains one of the kindest meals for an older stomach, with no frying fat at all. Bring a small pan of water to a bare simmer, add a splash of vinegar to help the white gather. Swirl the water into a little whirlpool and slide in one egg. 3 minutes later, lift it out with a slotted spoon and rest it on hot buttered toast. The white is tender, the yolk soft enough to pour, and the whole thing slips down easily. At around 20 pence, it is the cheapest of comforts and the gentlest of dinners. A grind of pepper and perhaps a few wilted spinach leaves underneath turn it into something almost elegant. For those watching their hearts and their pennies alike, the poached egg asks for nothing but a pan of water and a few quiet minutes. Number 9. The homemade Scotch egg. Shop-bought Scotch eggs cost a small fortune, but making one at home turns pennies into a feast. Wrap a single hard-boiled egg in a thin layer of sausage meat, or even a flattened, seasoned slice of bread soaked in a little milk for the truly thrifty. Then roll it in flour, beaten egg, and breadcrumbs. Bake it in the oven rather than deep frying to save both fat and bother, turning once until crisp and golden. Cut in half, it reveals that satisfying ring of meat around the firm egg. Served with a spoonful of pickle and a few salad leaves, it makes a proper, hearty supper. At around 50 pence for one good-sized Scotch egg, it costs a third of the chiller cabinet version. It keeps well in the fridge too, ready to be picked up cold whenever cooking feels like too much effort. Number 8. Egg and onion, the old kosher comfort. Brought to Britain by Jewish families and quietly adopted across the country, egg and onion is a humble marvel. Hard-boil 2 eggs and chop them small, then mix with a finely chopped raw onion, or, gentler on the stomach, an onion softened slowly in a little oil. Bind it with a spoon of mayonnaise or a knob of melted butter, season generously, and pile it onto bread or a baked potato. The sweetness of the onion against the rich egg is endlessly comforting, and it improves after an hour in the fridge as the flavors marry. At around 30 pence, it stretches 2 eggs into a filling plateful and keeps for a day or 2 covered. For seniors who grew up in mixed city neighborhoods, the taste carries echoes of corner delis and neighbors' kitchens, a small edible memory of community served on a single plate. Number 7. Savory eggy bread. Most people know eggy bread as a sweet treat, but the savory version makes a proper dinner. Beat 1 egg with a splash of milk, a pinch of salt, and plenty of pepper. Then soak a slice of bread in it until it drinks the mixture up. Fry it in a little butter until golden and slightly puffed on both sides. Eaten with a spoonful of baked beans, a grilled tomato, or a smear of brown sauce, it becomes a warm, custardy, satisfying plate. It is the perfect way to rescue bread that has gone a touch stale, since dry bread soaks up the egg even better than fresh. At around 25 pence, it costs next to nothing and uses up what might otherwise be wasted. There is real comfort in that soft, eggy slice, the same comfort children were fed after school, and grandparents now feed themselves with a quiet smile. Number 6. Boiled egg and soldiers. Some dinners never grow up, and thank goodness for that. A soft boiled egg in its cup, the top sliced off to reveal that golden pool, with fingers of hot buttered toast lined up like soldiers ready to dip, is one of the purest pleasures left in British life. Lower 1 egg into gently boiling water for 5 minutes for a runny yolk, then settle it in an egg cup and butter your toast. The ritual of dipping, the salt sprinkled into the open shell, the last scrape of the white from the bottom, is a small ceremony performed for an audience of 1, and none the worse for it. At under 20 pence, it is cheaper than almost anything, and for a light evening, or if you are feeling poorly, it is exactly enough. There is nothing childish about taking comfort where you find it, and few comforts come kinder than soldiers at supper time. Number 5. Egg and beans on toast. 2 store-cupboard heroes meet on a single plate and feed a body properly for spare change. Warm half a tin of baked beans in a small pan, fry or poach an egg alongside, and tip them both onto thick, buttered toast so the bean sauce and the soft yolk run together into glorious orange and gold. The beans bring fiber and a little sweetness, the egg brings protein and richness, and the toast carries it all. The remaining beans keep covered in the fridge for tomorrow, making this a meal that pays for itself twice. At around 30 pence a serving, it is the definition of cheap and cheerful, and it asks almost nothing of tired hands or a tired appetite. For anyone who lived through leaner times, beans and an egg on toast is the taste of a kitchen that always managed, somehow, to put something hot on the table. Number 4. Scrambled eggs on toast. If there is a national supper for 1, this might be it. Beat 2 eggs with a splash of milk and a good pinch of salt, melt a knob of butter in a pan over a low heat, and pour them in. The secret the best cooks know is patience and a low flame, stirring slowly and lifting the pan off the heat while the eggs are still slightly soft, so they finish cooking in their own warmth into a creamy, tender cloud. Pile that onto hot buttered toast, and you have one of the most comforting plates in the British repertoire for around 30 pence. It is gentle on the teeth, generous with protein, and ready in under 5 minutes. A few snips of chive or a grind of pepper dress it up, but it needs nothing. Soft, warm, and quietly satisfying scrambled eggs are the meal that never lets a person down. Number 3. The fried egg sandwich. The famous egg banjo. Ask any old soldier or builder, and they will tell you the egg banjo is sacred. The name comes from the way you hold it up to inspect the runny yolk, miming a banjo as it inevitably drips down your front. Fry 1 egg until the white is set, but the yolk is still soft. Slide it between 2 thick slices of buttered bread. Add a splash of brown sauce or ketchup, and press down gently so the yolk bursts and soaks into the bread. It is messy, glorious, and deeply satisfying for around 25 pence. There is no cutlery required and barely any washing up, just a frying pan and a happy stomach. For seniors who remember works canteens, building sites, and station cafes, the egg banjo is a taste of working life and easier days, as filling and faithful now as it ever was. Number 2, the everything omelette. The grandest egg supper costs the least, because it is built entirely from leftovers. Beat 3 eggs, season them, and pour them into a hot buttered pan. Then add whatever the fridge offers up: a few cubes of cheese, the last slice of ham torn small, a spoon of cold cooked peas or potato, a chopped tomato, a pinch of herbs. Fold it over as the cheese melts and the filling warms through, and tip it onto a warm plate. No two are ever the same, which keeps a solo cook from ever growing bored. At around 40 pence, depending on what gets thrown in, it transforms odds and ends into a hot, hearty, protein-packed dinner that empties the fridge of anything teetering towards waste. For a generation raised to never throw food away, the everything omelette is the dish that honors that thrift while tasting like something brand new every single night. And finally, in first place, egg and chips. There is no contest. Egg and chips has fed lone diners across Britain for 100 years and remains the king of cheap egg suppers, the plate that says "home" louder than any other. Peel and chop 1 potato into chips, and instead of deep frying, toss them in a little oil and bake or air fry them until golden and crisp, kinder to the heart and easier to manage alone. While they cook, fry 1 egg until the edges go lacy and the yolk stays soft. Tip the chips onto the plate, slide the egg on top, and break the yolk so it runs down into the chips like the best sauce ever invented. A shake of salt, a splash of vinegar, perhaps a spoon of beans on the side. And there it is. For around 40 pence, a complete and deeply comforting dinner, the same plate that has greeted tired workers, lonely widowers, and contented pensioners for generations. Cheap, hot, and faithful to the last chip. There you have it, 25 cheap British egg dinners that prove eating well alone need not cost a fortune or take an age. Pick just one this week, crack an egg, and treat yourself to a proper hot plate. Which one will you make first? Tell me in the comments below.